folks, I'm incredibly excited to be here in front of you all. It is a dream come true for me. The only difference really between this and the dream is that in the dream at this point when I look down, I don't have any clothes on. So it's a little bit different. Anyway, I want to thank the organizing committee for having me. I want to thank Steve for that nice introduction. And I want to thank you all for coming, but I especially want to welcome you. Let me get my rig set up here. I especially want to welcome you all to my talk. Welcome, professional software development coaches. I guess I see some blank looks. I know that some of you are hungover this morning, and as a result, you are probably wondering whether maybe you came to the wrong room. But I also know that some of you are not hungover this morning, and you're pretty sure that I'm the one that's in the wrong room right now. But let's break it down. Let's find out what the problem word here is in professional software coaches. So first of all, can I see a show of hands? If you have a job, can you raise your hand? Okay, so there's no problem with professional, right? All right, so, okay. Maybe software. Just show of hands again, does your job involve software at all? Huh. So, by a process of elimination, I think we've determined that the problem word is coaches. All right. It's the middle of the conference. We've just had our first day. This is the morning of our second day. You've been to some sessions, yeah? One more show of hands. Did anybody learn anything yet? Cool. Are you psyched? Are you going to go home on Monday, get back to the office, and start changing things? When you make those changes, what you're going to be doing is changing your team. You'll be changing your team. Now, somebody I know will say, "Oh, I'm not going to change my team. I'm just going to change this kind of test that I write. It's certainly not going to. I don't want to be changing teams here. I just want to change the code. I'm going to change the code." Don't kid yourself. If you change the code, you will be changing your team. And we have a word for that. The people who change teams are called coaches. Coaches change teams. And that's what you're all going to be doing on Monday, changing teams. So that's why we're going to have a conversation about changing things. I want you to use your imagination for a minute, and I want you to imagine that sitting nearby you, somewhere here in this is Alice. Alice is a department head at what, here's some coaching lingo for you, at what we call a VBCA. A very big corporation of America. If you've never heard of a VBCA, that's a Monty Python illusion. You'll just have to look it up offline. But anyway, the point is, she's not the most powerful person in her organization, but she's also not the least powerful person in her organization. And we have Alice, and Alice has been to every session that you've been to. In fact, Alice has some mysterious powers, and she's actually been to all of the sessions at once. And she'll be in all the rest of them for the rest of this conference. The thing is, Alice is fired up. She's so excited. She's got so much juice for change. And that's awesome, because that's what these conferences are for, right? Alice has a vision. Alice sees a bright, shining city on it. And the city on the hill is just glorious. It's the perfect team, working for the perfect company, solving the perfect problem for the perfect customer in the perfect way imagined. The city on the hill. Unfortunately, when she looks around, what she actually sees is that she's living in South Craptown. South Craptown is basically the world's largest strip mall full of check cashing places and liquor stores. It's lit up at night fairly brightly by the neon from the strip clubs. And it's not the city on the hill. It's grim and horrible and scary and awful. And Alice wants to change things. She wants to go from South Craptown to the city on the hill. And I'll tell you, Alice's plan, her idea about how this change is going to work, almost certainly has 4 particular attributes that I want to draw your attention to. Her solution is very likely to be procedural, given, sweeping, and final. What do I mean by those words? Okay, procedural. What I mean is, she's going to be focused on mechanisms, flows. Certain kinds of meetings happen at certain times. Certain kinds of conversations happen here. We have artifacts. We have Jira. We have this and that and the other. The procedure is what is central to her. It's almost as if she's thinking of it as a computer algorithm for writing software. However, instead of computers running the code, humans are going to be running the code. So that's what I mean when I say procedure. What about given? Well, Alice is a department head. She's not inside a bunch of geeks and some customers down on the ground floor who are trying to write some code. She's outside. She's external. And she's not gathering from them their changes. She's giving them to them. That's what I mean when I say giving. In fact, she intends to tell them what to do. She intends to find clever ways to measure their progress to see whether they have done what she has told them to do. And she's going to score them on it. So that's what I mean when I say giving. And then sweeping is pretty obvious, right? Her change is going to touch every corner of her department. We're going to have different meetings. We're going to have different names for things. We might even rearrange the org chart. We're going to do all kinds of grand, sweeping change in this plan. And finally, see what I did there? Finally, what I mean by this is that, she's going to take us all the way to the city on the hill, and then done. We're done. Because remember, the city on the hill is perfect. Once we get to the city on the hill, we won't have to change anything. It's just whoosh, 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 there. And then we're all done changing. And that's what I mean by final. So Alice's vision is procedural, it's given, it's sweeping, and it's final. And it's virtually guaranteed to fly. It's oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 20 years, I can't tell you the horror shows I have seen in the name of change. Thereby very likely creating a colossal failure. I want to give you something else. Instead of procedural, I want you to think about human. Instead of given, I want you to think about taken. Instead of sweeping, I want you to think about local. And instead of final, I want you to think about iterative. And the rest of this talk is about those goals, those 8 tips. And, they're not really tactics, they're strategies, they're things for you to think about. But let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the procedural versus the human. So software is built by a combination of 3 different things. You have the humans, and then you have the non-human but still concrete. The tools, the forms, the computers themselves, the pencils, the monitors. And then you have the procedures, the mechanisms, the rules. Now, the non-human parts of these systems are extremely powerful. There's no question about that. But that power pales in the face of actual human power. Humans outwit systems constantly, for good and for ill. And it's important to understand both for good and for ill. We can talk about for real really quickly. Have you ever heard of something called a work by rule strike? In a work by rule strike, what we do is we all show up on time, we check in on the clock, we're all there, present, happy, excited, and we follow the procedures exactly and only. And do you know what happens? Work halts almost immediately. Almost immediately. And the best part of it is, management can't do anything about it. You're just doing your job. You're just following orders. If you've ever had a sullen teenager, you know just how incredibly effective and annoying work by rule is. You said to put it there, so I put it there. Little bastards. Anyway, but it's also potentially for good. Sidney Decker wrote a book called A Field Guide to Understanding Human Error. Decker is an accident investigator. He specializes in airplane incidents, actually. And what his mission is to reverse the kind of traditional old school models. If you've ever looked into these things, what you'll find is tons and tons of reports that essentially end with the words operator error. Operator error, operator error. And what he does, he goes back and he looks at that data and he looks at new ones and he completely inverts that equation. Because what he notices is the extent to which humans, far from being the main source of error in procedural-based systems, are actually the main source of safety. Humans outwit the procedural part to keep the whole thing running. And they do it all the time, casually, without even thinking. And that's why we're so excited about this idea of shifting away from procedural to a human view of change. The first rule of this game is obsess over the collaboration. The collaboration is incredibly important to us because that is the way by which humans actually do their outwitting of the system. I put collaboration in scare quotes there because a lot of people will slide instantly from collaboration to email, Slack, a technical document, a meeting. When I say collaboration, what I'm talking about is conversation. Frequent, focused, direct dialogue. F2D2. So, to obsess over collaboration, first of all, you have to attend to it. You have to watch the collaboration and not the procedures. Secondly, the biggest thing that will help you in thinking about what to do with it is to consider lots of continuous variety. Changing things up. And the rationale here, when you make changes, when you have variety in your interactions, you keep them fresh. And keeping them fresh is critical. So you change the mode, solo work, paired work, mobbed work. You could do meetings, you could do all those things. Do them all. Do them randomly. Just because I did this task using a meeting last week, in no way means that I have to do that same task using a meeting this week. You can change the spaces that you're working in, right? Sometimes you need a small space, a two-person space. Sometimes you need a great big hall like this one. Not very often, to be honest. But sometimes you need a bigger space. Some spaces are good because they're like a library. They're quiet and focused and intense. And some spaces are good because they're like a Turkish bazaar. There's people walking around selling parrots, hawking those strips of meat, stuff like that, and it's great. And keeping that in motion, keeping it changing, is itself a tremendous way to raise the level of collaboration that goes on inside your teams. Don't lock yourself to one mode, because there is no one mode that fits every one of us. And we need every one of us in order to maximize the value that we get out of our human collaboration. Human collaboration is what keeps such things working. Second piece of advice, this is going to freak Alice out, okay? And seek judgments. not numbers. Oh my gosh, we live in a time that is obsessed with a cult of numbers. Yeah, you see that? You guys have lots of numbers at work, I bet. How many tests? What's your burn down? How many weeks until it ships? How many developers? Please tell me none of you call people resources. Please tell me none of you call people resources. Okay. Anyway, all those numbers, right? They lead us in a horrible, horrible direction, but let me just suggest the direction that it leads us in. I don't know, when was the last time you went to a doctor? You went to a doctor, you had something wrong with you. The doctor said, tell me what's going on. And you said 3. And the doctor said, what? 3. I'm 3. I'm very concerned about it. Nobody does that. Nobody does that ever. It's, oh, my big toe really hurts. Then I'm going to do this. My arm flaps around really weirdly. And sometimes I get a stomach ache. Right? You give details. You don't abstract it into a number. You express a judgment. Now, it's not that numbers can never, ever be useful. It's that I don't want to go there first. The first thing I want to do is find out how people feel. Humans know things they don't actually know that they know. So I strongly recommend that you ask them what they think and what they feel. And that you then, this is really hard, listen to them. Listen. Now, to be sure, a lot of what they think they're telling you, they're not telling you. When I say listen, I don't just mean listen to the words, and I don't just mean head for the dictionary to find the meaning of those words. I mean use all of your senses. Use all of your senses to do that. You can vary your technique. You can use many retrospectives. I know some people, even at their sessions here, have, at the end of their 45-minute session, a 5-minute retrospective. Just takes 5 minutes. What did you like about this? What was the worst part of this awful thing for you? What should I do next time? These are all great questions to ask people. You don't have to have a once a week, hour-long complaint show. You can do many retrospectives anytime you want. Other techniques. You can conduct surveys. You can stick them in email. Make them small, really small. 3 questions. Ask for answers that are words, not numbers. And then draw a tag cloud of all those words. And of course, you can find out the same stuff doing one-on-ones. Just hanging out with people. This is what I recommend for one-on-ones. Take a walk with the person. Say, hey, come on. I'm a smoker, so I have the easy advantage. I can always walk up to somebody and say, hey, step out into my office for a minute. And we're going to go outside and we'll wander along and we'll just talk. That's an excellent way to vary your ability to find judgments, to get opinions, to get feelings instead of numbers. All right, so if we go from procedural to human, we also have to go from giving to taking. I've been a coach for 21 years. And whenever I tell somebody that I'm a coach, they always ask me, the immediate first question they always ask me, how do I get them to do what I want them to do? Right? So first of all, come on, it's a trade secret, right? What the hell? Walk up to a Coca-Cola executive on the first meeting and say, oh, what's the secret formula? Okay? And I tell that joke to them, and they laugh, and then they ask me the question again. How do I get them to do what I want them to do? Well, you seem like those people. I'll tell you. How do I get them to do what I want them to do? Yeah, I know. I don't get them to do what I want them to do. I get them to do what they want to do. Now that sounds hilarious, right? Because you think to yourself, well, aren't they already doing what they want to do? the capricious, evil, unmotivated, weak, bad programming geeks? Aren't they already doing what they want to do? And the answer is no. As a matter of fact, they generally aren't. And if you can find something they want to do that will forward your aim, that will help your change happen, out of the park. You will have hit it out of the park when you do that. So the trick is not giving them the answer, it's taking the answer from them. The first piece of this is to create experiences and not arguments. My first coaching victim, Gary, wherever you are, Gary, I love it. I was like 21, 22 years ago. I was cheating. I was like you guys who didn't think of yourselves as a coach an hour ago. And I was really just becoming a coach. And I had argued, persuaded, pressured, threatened, reasoned, and explained enough to get permission to do TDD in a small corner of my code. Test-driven development in a small corner of an application that I was working on with Gary. And I did it. I did it for about 8 weeks. And every day I'm telling him how great it is, and I'm explaining it, and Gary's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But, I was a productive geek, so he was going to let me have this little bit of freedom to do this thing that I wanted to try. One day he brings me a bug, and essentially the problem was that we were sending an extra carriage return. Believe it or not, that was the problem. And so he came to me and sat down with me to fix it together. And true to form, I wrote a test that proved that in that particular context we were not currently sending the right thing. And then we slipped into the code and quick like a bunny, Gary was a geek as well as my manager, quick like a bunny, he put in the change that added an extra carriage return. And the test went from red to green. And his reaction was, yeah, okay, whatever, right? And Gary's not stupid, he knew his change was going to fix that problem. So he was totally cool. And then I ran the rest of the tests. And we got like 50 red tests because of that line of code that he changed. We scratched our heads and we looked at it, and then it hit us. We had made the correct change, but we had put it in the wrong part of the code. So we literally cut the line of code that we'd added, moved it to the correct place, pasted it in, reran all the tests, and now the new test is passing, and the other 50 tests are all passing too. So, I'm very pleased with ourselves. We get up, we go outside, we have our ritual cigarette upon completing a task, and we're standing there, and Gary is like, it's kind of looking off into space, kind of vague. And for a while, he didn't really say anything. I was actually starting to worry, So finally, he turns to me and says, so I guess this TDD shit really works, doesn't it? Well, bingo! I had a convert for life. I had been haranguing him about this for 6 or 8 weeks. It took 20 minutes. It took 20 minutes of actually experiencing how TDD could help him. And he was sold from that point forward. Create experiences, not arguments, because nothing is more powerful than having a winning experience. There's technique to this, there's tactics. I don't have time to go into all the tactics, but at the very least, what you want to do, you want the good thing to happen to me. And you want it to happen to me with a modest amount of effort on the first day. And when that good thing happens to me, I'm going to be just like Gary. I'm going to be like, So I guess this specifying requirements by story shit really works, doesn't it? And that's the experience that you want to have happen. An experience is a short period of a particular activity, and the idea is to get it under our fingers. I say fingers because I'm a geek, but I work with product people too, right? And in that case, getting it under our fingers might be something like getting a story that's hard to slice and slicing it brilliantly. there are 3 different things you can do. You can make a toy, right? A lot, unfortunately, of software pedagogy is actually toy-based. They give you a little tiny reading problem that has nothing to do with your day job. And then you use the technique to solve the problem. And that's good for the first 20 minutes of your life in this new world. But it's not good. It's easy for me to step one up. It's hard for you to get the win. Because you're like, yeah, that was a really fun toy. But, you know, I'm a typical person in a large corporation. I have little toys all over my desk that I never use. I got them. I was really excited about them. I used them for 3 days, and then I was like, yeah, I don't want a fidget spinner anymore. And so it just all stacks up on my desk. Toys are weak in that respect. At the bottom, much more serious, of course, is if I take a real full-size actual problem from the day job and we apply my change technique to that actual problem. The problem with that is a great deal of what we do for a living is shave yaks, right? And you can lose the flow if your problem is too much in the real world. You don't get them the reward that they need that makes them feel better about your idea for change. Because they're off looking this up, they're searching for that on the internet, they've never used this before, or so on and so forth, right? So the middle ground then is take a small problem out of the day job. And to be completely honest, do it yourself first. If you're not a developer and you want to do TDD, go find a developer and pair with them on a small problem. The reason is because you want to be able to, when I show it to the larger group and get them to work on it, I want to be able to sidestep yak shaving. I want to be standing there and saying, actually, I know how you do this. You take it like this and you twist it this way and push, it goes right in. There's no yak to shave here. That's why we cheat. Go ahead and cheat. So create experiences, don't argue with people. Arguing with people is actually unbelievably ineffective. The truth of the matter is humans don't make most of their decisions based on reasons. I'm sorry, I know this upsets some of you to even consider the idea that your conscious reasoning, logical processes are not the thing that make you do what you do. But you know what? It's a new day dawning. We need to think about that, because the reality is that what most of us do most of the time is we do stuff, and then we come up with reasons why that's what we do. Don't start with reasons, start with experiences. Next piece to this is complicated. Braid eye betters together with tea betters. So I bet if you close your eyes for just a second, you will think of 10 ways in which you have not yet lived up to your own human potential. 10 ways in which you could be better. Now, that's true of almost everyone. This, by the way, is my definition of being a coach. I create or exploit openings through which individuals, including sometimes myself, can take little tiny steps to get closer to who or how they wish they were. And that's the part I want to draw your attention to. Who or how they wish they were. I can't say it is universal, but I bet the overwhelming majority of you are not actually satisfied with yourselves yet. You're not ready to quit trying new things or changing things in your life. You're still wishing that you were, I don't know, a little stronger, a little smarter, a little faster. You're individuals, and what you would like to do is move towards a better. Better could be almost anything. A better listener, a better mom, a better coder, a better almost anything. It doesn't even matter. We call these kinds of betters that belong to individuals, we call them I betters. It's better for me. I don't care about my VBCA when I'm thinking about I betters. I care about me. So, there are 3 remarkable facts about eye betters in humans. The first one of them is shown there. There isn't just one I better. I know that you all think of me as pretty much almost perfect, and there's really just that one little tweak. But I don't think of myself that way. There's a whole bunch of different things I could be. I could be a faster coder. I could learn JavaScript. I could be stronger. I could be wiser. I could be gentler. There are so many different directions for better that are available to me. So that's the first amazing thing. The second amazing thing is this. No two of us have exactly the same list in exactly the same order. We all have different lists in various different ways. And the third remarkable fact, everybody loves stepping closer to their own better. Everybody loves when they say, 20 pounds today. Everybody loves when they say, you know what? I totally did not smack that teenager upside the head. I must be getting better. Everybody knows that experience, so we can use that. Now, teams also have betters. We call those T-betters. The team is at one, I keep gesturing to this thing that doesn't change. The team has one spot, and there are lots and lots of different ways in which the team could be better. But teams don't just have T-betters. Remember, teams also have individuals spread all through them. This concept of braiding together I-betters and T-betters looks graphically like this. I'm just going to take two of my individuals. And you see what I did there? I advanced a team better by putting together the team better with two I-betters that were probably different. A real-world example, if you wanted to be a stronger person who understood code better, or on the left and on the right, we had a person who was a better mentor, or even a person who would like to work less because they're the strongest geek in the team and they always are getting called on in these emergencies. If I can get the two of them to pair together with their completely different interests in the I-better, I can forward my T-better. And that is what I mean when I say braid together I-betters and T-betters. All right. Sweeping change and local change. We're looking here at an illustration of something called the Satir curve. The Satir curve has performance running along the side. So my height is performance. And here's what's happening. You're zipping along. Let's see. What way does it face you? You're zipping along. You're not going backwards. I'm going backwards. You're zipping along and your performance is here. And you encounter a foreign element. Now, you might be wondering, what's a foreign element? That's what a coach is. We're foreign elements. Right? Something that perturbs you, that creates change. That's what we mean with foreign element. And here's what happens. Your performance goes, and you hit this trough. You hit this trough in your performance. And then something clicks. Ideally, the thing that will click is an experience that was created for you that you had. Usually there's a coach and other teammates and everybody involved in the clicking moment. They call it an integrating moment. And then your performance goes swooping back up. And if that element was a good element, your performance goes up to the new level, much higher than it was when it started. Now, there's a lot of information out there about Virginia Satir and her study and her followers, all out there on the internet. You can all look it up. But what I actually want to draw your attention to is a question. How bad is that trough? Here's the thing. The bigger the change, the bigger the foreign element, the bigger the trough. What do I mean by that? I mean that it's not linear. A change of size 3 might have a a trough of size 3. But a change of size 4 is very likely to have a trough of size 6 or 8 or 9. The bigger the change, the bigger the trough. And that is why we don't actually want gigantic changes. All right, so then what do we do? Where do we start? Here's what everybody wants to do. Let's find the biggest thing that's holding us back. We'll get the biggest thing that's holding us back, and we'll fix that, by God. And then we'll have dramatically better efficiency. That doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is really straightforward, right? Because the biggest thing holding us back is going to be the biggest thing we change. And the bigger the change, the bigger the trough. So then where should we start? Easiest, nearest owie first. Enough. Easiest, nearest owie first. Find the closest thing to you that everybody in the team doesn't like, and change it. Easiest, nearest owie. Change it until it gets better. Now, it's actually, it's my name, easiest, nearest owie first, but the truth of the matter is it's misleading because it isn't really easiest, nearest owie first. It's E-N-O last, then E-N-O in the middle, and E-N-O all the way through. It's always easiest, nearest owie. Now, some of you will be suspicious of that because you'll say, what about that big thing that actually is holding us back? But an amazing aspect of the easiest, nearest owie approach is this. Whenever I deal with the first 29 easiest, nearest owies, I then have a second row of problems behind me, right? And those did not look like the easiest, nearest owies at the time I looked. But with those first 29 out of the way, these further away and more difficult problems actually shrink. They shrink and they come closer. Those of you who are programmers who have done refactoring will have actually experienced this in the code. What we say in that refactoring world is first clear the brush, then go after the tree. First fix all the little close things. And the reason is because it is far easier to do it. It is far easier. The trees, I know this sounds bizarre, the trees come closer to you and get smaller as you clear away the brush. Now, you're probably thinking to yourselves too that the biggest thing that is holding you back, you can probably close your eyes right now and think of the biggest thing that's holding your team back right now. I'm going to tell you some harsh news. You're probably wrong. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's true. You're probably wrong. Because the biggest thing that is holding you back is actually the set of patterns and behaviors that allowed you to take an easiest, nearest owie and grow it week after week, month after month, year after year, until it holds everybody back. You could have fixed it when it was tiny, if you had been aggressively fixing the easiest, nearest owie first. All right, the next piece of advice, try different, not harder. How many times have you heard somebody, usually a boss person, say, we just need to try harder. Exercise some discipline. Try harder. We'll get there. So, has it been your experience that that works at all in any way? No, it really doesn't. Oh, sure, I can try twice. I can try 3 times. I'll never try a 4th time. Never. You don't try harder. Most people at most of our organizations are trying pretty hard already. So, one of the things we want to do here, we want to abandon a whole bunch of 19th century motivational model crap. Complete garbage. You want to abandon moral pressure. You want to stop telling people, you'll be a better citizen if you clean up the coffee area. You want to stop supplying extrinsic carrot and stick. And you want to forget this whole business about no pain, no gain. It's not that none of these ever work. All four of them sometimes work a little for some people. That's not a formula for success. That's sometimes a little for some people. So what do we do instead? Better. What works is better. So when people say you have to try harder, what I almost always say is, well, why don't we just try different instead? Change something, almost anything will do. Humans swim where the krill are tasty. They always do. And you're going to say, are you really saying short-term gratification is the only answer? Yeah. I really am saying you will do better if you focus your attention on pleasing people in the shortest possible amount of time. One way you can do that is by actually trusting the people who are about to be changed. Trust them to tell you that there's another approach. Trust them if they say, we could try X, Y, or Z. The answer to that is always, okay, yes, let's try X, Y, or Z. Let's give it a shot. Try different, not harder. In general, in this approach to change, we want to try anything that is definitely not worse. Anything will do. Anything that's definitely not worse is what we're looking for. Because you remember, we talked about this already, there's lots of betters. There's not just one. There's lots of betters. Anything that doesn't move me exactly backwards is very likely going to be a win. Okay. For the last piece of this, we have final versus iterative. In the final mode, the idea is we get to the city on the hill, and then we're going to stop changing things after that. And in the iterative model, we don't do it because I have bad news about the city on the hill. Alice, my friend, you don't know where the city on the hill is. You don't know where it is. And it doesn't matter anyway because it's moving all the time. Does anybody here suck at adulting? Yeah, me too. I just suck at it. The thing about adulting is, you deal with problem A, B, C, D, and E, and you're like, well, I'm going to be done. The day's over, I got my 5 problems, whoosh, winning. And the second you get there, problems F, G, H, I, and J step up to take a swing, right? That's why adulting is so hard. It is a permanently moving target. Well, so is the city on the hill. It is in permanent motion. So when I say go from final to iterative, there's 2 pieces to that. The first piece is expect yourself to have increments of change. And you know what? I bet everybody in this room is totally down with that. Okay, cool. Yeah, good. But I didn't say final versus incremental. I said final versus iterative. Iteration means doing the same thing twice. It means repeating the same thing. And in the context of change, iterative means changing the same thing twice. In the incremental mode, it's like this. Ooh, +1, +2, +3. Straight line from South Craptown to the city on the hill. Iterative is much more like this. And you think to yourself, well, that's wildly inefficient. And it would be if you knew exactly where South Craptown was, and you knew exactly where the city on the hill was, and they never changed their relationship, and you never had any questions about the terrain that lies in between. However, all three of those are untrue. You actually don't know everything there is to know about South Craptown. You certainly don't know what lies between you and the city on the hill. And you don't even have really a city on the hill. You just have adulting. A little change, a little change, a little change, a little better, a little better, a little better. This is how we went. All right, that's final to iterative. A couple of specific pieces of advice. A lot of people say, well, isn't all that change going to make people nervous? I know a lot of you are locals, right? You drove in this morning. Were you freaked out? It's pretty upsetting, all the change. You know, you had to change the lanes. There's a guy in front of you who was going too fast and he was going too slow. Probably pretty stressful. Yeah, I'm sorry. I stayed in the hotel, it's cool. But, no, of course it didn't. And yet, you were changing the entire trip. The circumstances were changing. The rules were changing. I know this is the second day, but if this had been your first day, you might not have ever even been to the Code Life Center before. And then you got to navigate the parking and get up there on the roof and all that good stuff. Change doesn't freak people out. Too much change at once freaks people out. So what we want to do then is build a habit of change. Change something every week. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what. Change it. Let's change that this week. You can talk it over with your team. You can not talk it over with your team. Just change things. If you get pushback, probably your change was too big. Second, it's possible that your change didn't make anything better and made something actively worse. Those are both possibilities. But mostly, what you're going to be doing is getting us in the habit of making changes, of not ourselves thinking of the city on there. And remember the basics all the way along, right? Collaborate to keep finding the easiest, nearest alleys, get reactions on numbers. But the point I really want to make goes back to this iteration concept. Do not fear revisiting. Some of you are geeks like myself, and we adopted this policy, test-driven development, and in this model, we constantly change code that we just wrote. We're not trying to get it right the first time. We're trying to get it close, and get it closer, and get it closer, and get it closer, and get it closer. We're constantly revisiting code we've already written. And amazingly, this attitude makes us far more productive than our friends who spend all their time trying to get it right the first time. We're not very good at estimating the cost required to get it right. Anybody who's ever sat in a meeting though for an hour and a half while three people argued about a detail in the getting of it right, you feel that cost, don't you? The amazing thing about the city on the hill concept is how much time people are willing to spend arguing about what color the walls will be painted there. And it's commonplace. Trying to be right costs us an enormous amount of time and energy and money. So, develop the habit of change. There are three things you can't change, three kinds of things. Opening the team is about finding those things and opening them up. You can't consciously change something you can't see. I'll tell you a story. I work with a lot of teams who do web development. And I was watching this fellow do web development one day, and here's what he did. He changed one line of code. In fact, I suspect he changed like one word in one line of code. Then he bounced the server. Then he bounced the client. Then he tabbed through 5 pages in the web application. At 2 of them, he had to stop and type garbage strings. Pro tip, never use profanity in a garbage string. Never, never. I'm not even going to tell you the stories I know about that. But, whatever. Then, he bounced the server again because he wasn't sure he bounced it the first time. Then, he opened up the log viewer. Then he looked at the log. And in his frame of reference, how he had been essentially raised to be a developer, that was all just part of the job. It was virtually invisible to him. He could never have seen from that how to change his world so that he could test the effect of that change without actually bouncing the server, bouncing the client, and tabbing through all those fields. Somebody had to show him that, which of course I did. This is my job, showing people things like that. But the point is, he couldn't change that because he couldn't sense it. It was invisible to him. In fact, going back to you driving to Kobo this morning, most of the time, driving to Kobo was invisible to you. I'm sure everybody here has had that experience too. Have you ever arrived home and not remember driving? I'm talking about summer. That happens to plenty of people. Because the truth is, your mind is doing lots of stuff all the time that it takes for granted and doesn't tell you about. And this guy was doing all this stuff, he wasn't even thinking about it. He wasn't even noticing it. Things you can't see, things you can't sense, are things you can't change. So, we need to pay a lot of attention. Retrospectives can help you there. The IBM can help. I practice a method, it's trademarked, please. No pictures. I practice a method called the IBM, the instant bitching method. Let me tell you something, none of my teams are ever in any doubt about what's making me unhappy. We don't have to have a special meeting for GeePaw, because everybody in the room already knows, because as soon as I feel a drag, I talk about it out loud. So retrospectives can help. The instant bitching method can help. Another thing that can help a lot, quiet reflection. Ask one of your teammates to come in and sit quietly and watch the world for half an hour on Wednesday afternoon. And then come back and tell us anything she happened to see. Quiet reflection, careful observation. Get out of the flow and watch the flow. That's what the mission is with that technique. Now there's another thing we can't change. We can't change what we can't say. Look, I can fix any problem we can talk about. But if we're not even allowed to talk about it, we can't do anything with it. I want to encourage everybody to be as honest as they can be, but I want to be clear. Being honest means believing everything you say. It does not mean saying everything you believe. A remarkable number of people get confused about that distinction. But yeah, I don't lie to my teams. I don't always tell them everything I think. I mean, I don't tell them that my underpants are riding up either. Right? Well, actually, in my case, I'm kind of do. It's the mention that I pretty much announce whatever. But in general, there are lots of things going on in you and around you that you don't feel the need to tell everybody about, and that's fine. But be honest. Whatever you do say, make it as true as you know how to say it. And a couple more little tips there. One is, we have to create spaces where people have permission to speak freely. Without that, we're not going to get the judgments we need, the opinions we need, the ideas we need. And in every team of more than 5 people, at least one of those people will be incredibly quiet by nature. That person will go to every meeting, will work hard every day, is possibly the smartest person in the room, and never gives her ideas or her opinions or her experiences to the rest of us. So you might have to be very creative to find ways to tickle that out so that you can understand what's going on, and so that we can actually talk about it. So we can't change what we can't sense, and we can't change what we can't say. And then the last category is, we can't change anything we assume we can't change. Now, I happen to know that a number of you come from a nearby VBCA that I myself worked at for 13, 14, 15 years. I mean, 15 months, and no, not 15 years. And I have to tell you that this problem of assuming that a thing cannot be changed is endemic at that particular organization. But I don't actually think it's about them. I think it's about the nature of these very big corporations of America. VBCAs make tremendous assumptions about what can change and what can not. Now, I cannot tell you how many times I've gone into a meeting. In fact, I did it even at that organization. How many times I've gone to a meeting. You know, I'm a coach. I'm here to change things. That's what I do, right? Armed to the teeth. I got my nerve. I got my briefcase. I got my PowerPoint. I got my passion. I got my persuasion. We're going to change the rule from being X to Y. And I walk in and I sit down with the bigwigs, the rule makers, and I say, so we're going to change, we want to change from rule X to rule Y. And I start on my pitch, which I will have tuned for weeks leading up to this. And you know what the guy across the table from me says? He's like, okay, cool, yeah, we don't care about that. This happens to me all the time. Down on the ground floor, the team thinks there are 10 million more rules than there actually are. Down on the floor, those folks assume anything they learned on day one cannot be changed. But remember, when we talked about humans and non-human systems, most of what they learned on day one was actually stuff coming from humans. It had nothing to do with the rules. I've been in so many meetings with auditors in 20 years of coaching, you wouldn't even know how many meetings I've been in. And how many times an auditor has said to me, in a very sort of imperious and confident tone, yeah, that seems reasonable. But in a VBCA, everybody's like, oh, the auditors will freak out. It's like, well, did you talk to them? Did you ask them? Did you have another idea for accomplishing the goal they wanted to accomplish? Because if you do all that, they're usually like, yeah, okay, that's cool, go ahead. Write it down. That's what they usually say. Okay, write that down, send it to me in an email, go ahead. Okay? So we can't change things that we assume we can't change. Now, a piece of advice for all of you, assume you have permission. I know this sounds like it's going to get you in horrible trouble. Here's the thing. If you're right and it works, nobody ever punishes anyone. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Assume you have the permission to change things and wait for someone important to come to you and say you don't have permission to change those things. It will happen far less frequently than you expect it to. And if you're winning, all they're going to do is yell at you for 10 minutes. Well, does anybody here have a teenager? You can all handle being yelled at for 10 minutes, can't you? It's no big, right? You gotta not live in fear, and you gotta assume that you have the ability to change things. So we're nearing the end of my advice. Very quickly, I just have a couple of final thoughts about changing the world. We started this movement, I'm a founder, kinda. Not long ago, somebody who was a victim of Alice's way of making changes said something pretty snarky and funny on the internet. She said that it didn't surprise her that XP sucked so bad because it was created by a bunch of old white guys. And I have to say, now don't get upset with me, seriously. I thought it was funny. Like most snarky comments, it was funny, there was a little bit of truth to it, and yet it was fundamentally unfair. But that's cool, that's what snark is, right? It tickled me. I happen to have been there. I was surrounded by people who founded first the extreme programming movement and then the Agile movement. And I have to tell you something really important about that. First of all, they weren't all a bunch of old white guys. We actually had plenty of women in that group of zeroth generation, and people from other countries, and people of other shades, and people of disparate religions. Some women you might know: Esther Derby, Diana Larson, Yuta Epstein, Emily Beish. All of these people helped us shape the beginning. There's one more piece to this. I don't want you to think that even those guys, even the guys who are on the marquee all the time, and certainly not me, if you think that we're satisfied with how far we've come, you have underestimated us. You don't need my permission to go change your shop, or your house, or your world. You don't need my support to do that, but you actually have it. And it isn't just me, it's all the founders. So I want you to think it hard about going out and actually changing the world. Jacob Needleman, the philosopher, wrote a book called The Heart of Philosophy, and at one point he talked about Socrates. I know, right? Another old white guy. But he talked about Socrates, and he talked about it in a way I had never heard before, and it really struck me and stayed with me all these years. He said, Socrates is not a person. Socrates is not a philosopher or a teacher. Socrates is not a philosophy. He's certainly not an answer. And he's not even a question. He said, Socrates is the moment at which we turn to face the question. Thank you.